All right, water rolls downhill. All right, is it really rolling downhill? I don't know. There's new studies in what's called the interstitium that we thought was more like the interstitial space that I mentioned earlier. We thought that, remember I used the fishbowl analogy, where you got fish kind of in a fluid in a container that holds the fluid, that holds the shape. Maybe not. It seems to be now that it's more like bubble wrap with little pockets of fluid when the fluid moves in between each of these pockets. And that changes a little bit your thought process on how the tissue fluid is transferred through the body. They don't fully understand this new concept on the interstitium because they just found it because they had better technology to see it. And you can't see the bubble wrap when the person is dead, when you're looking at it on a cadaver, because the fluid leaks out of the bubbles. So they didn't find the bubbles with fluid in them until they were using some technology on somebody that was alive. And it actually had to do with the gallbladder resection and all that kind of stuff, but they found the same kind of thing. So, in the whole body. So I don't even know if that analogy really even works, but it doesn't hurt, right? And you still see people. Hi, how are you, Fallon?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Did you come get a massage?
I just got one.
Well,
I
good.
just got one over there.
Yay for you.
I just want to say hi.
We'll see you next time, my dear.
Okay.
Yay. Bye-bye. One of these days I'll have Fallon talk to you about her journey. Okay. So I'm still going to work with that analogy because if you prop your feet up, your ankles aren't swollen as much, right? So then I also know that the pump that's moving fluid back up has to do with the muscles contracting and relaxing against it. And every time the skin slips back and forth, you're also going to have that same pulling of the little flaps open. That all being said now, see if you can understand why something like this makes sense. Why is that logical? Why is that biologically plausible?
Pulling like a water pump, basically. Like you have a water pump, you're pushing, you're using
Yeah.
heat to force that.
I remember I told you all the sponge stuff down there, and then it's moving the calves, and
You get liquid out of the sponge by pushing on it too.
and
The bottoms of the feet are literally, there's a kind of a fatty tissue that acts like a bit of a sponge. So pressing on the bottoms of the feet is an important piece to some of this, but changing the shape of the ankle, changing the shape of the knee there, more at the hip, just rhythmic full body movement.
And then, now if you just watch the pants, you can see how that's slipping in there. And here is a major area of nodes. So pump, 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 pump. This is not necessarily, that level of shaking isn't necessarily going to act as much of a pump at the nodes, but it's going to slide the superficial fascia, which is going to affect the fluid movement. But you can also use that as an assessment to see where it won't wiggle. all right? So that this pant leg wiggles pretty good. But if I take something down in there,
I could just restrict my movement.
we're gonna adhere some of his superficial fascia to the deep fascia.
Fine.
Okay. See how that doesn't move now? Things move around it, but that doesn't move. Now, is this gonna release the tape? What's gonna release the tape? Either I gotta grab hold of it and translate it up, or... Sorry.
I was trying to be ready for it.
So do you get the idea of the importance of lift on all of that? You think you can do this? Is
Is this possible?
it's not that complex, is it? But it makes sense. And then you do that up here too. My propping is very interesting down there.
Yes.
There we go. It would be nice if I had some symmetry, but.
No, for the legs.
Yeah, they're all
I
right.
could do that. Hold on.
Oh! Make sure you get a picture of that, Sarah.
Profound.
Sometimes you wonder, right? Aren't you glad I'm one of your teachers? All right. You think you can do that? I think you probably can. Right here between the breastbone. Now this is not so much that way, it's up and down. Right under where your little clavicles are at, right there. Now what if there were breasts that were much larger than his? And they're sensitive.
Or to the shoulders, sorry.
What's that?
I said you could have them fold them apart or put.
Yep.
Hands.
Let's see what you can see.
A pillow.
Yep. Now, here's the rest of the ribs. Where my hands are right on the edge of the rib cage. Looks like a diaphragm, doesn't it? You know, with the cranial sacral. Move that. I just want my angle to go up just a little bit. Kind of cool. So those would be the other elements that you would bring into it. You could add deep breathing. As a little bit of a side note, they're connecting what they're calling long COVID to breathing disorder. That the symptoms because people had interrupted breathing, and they went from breathing through their nose primarily to breathing through their mouth. And it's unsettling vagus nerve function when they do that. There they are. And some of the symptoms that people are having are related to dysregulation of vagus nerve control. So we'll talk more about breathing, but breathing is one of the main ways this is moved. So I can instruct with some breathing and just slow inhale through your nose, blow it out through your nose if you can. Just like that.
You want me to be breathing good or bad?
Yeah, breathe good. So, a pump here, rhythmic 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 pump here. In general, fluid from the waist up will drain into the axilla, into the armpits. Fluid from the waist down is going to drain initially into the groin. So if I'm thinking about how do I move fluid from the limbs, I want to think about that transition point into the thorax. So this kind of move is going to help that. And I can also do this. And I'm thinking about fluid moving from behind the knee, and then this pumping action at the groin. Not about range of motion, it's about a pump. And then the same idea at a limb.
I'm feeling an added benefit with that one because as she brings the arm over, she's putting a little bit more into that, basically using my arm to compress into my rib cage. Does that make sense?
So there are people that will say, some disciplines that will say, for fluid movement, you need to open the chest up first because that's where it's all going to dump. I don't get too fussy about that. I think compression in the area is a good thing. In the book, it'll tell you to start there. Because when I write that textbook, I have to not aggravate too many people too, or they won't accept what's in there. So sometimes the protocols are a little bit more specific, more so than what I would normally do in my regular practice. So this would be a little bit more of a connective tissue type move where I'm trying to, you can see it with the shirt, I'm trying to move that down a little bit. They don't have to be in a sequence. So I add the passive movement and the rocking as I am doing it, as I am, with the massage. So if he was on his tummy, roll over on your tummy. So I can do that, right? We got the ankles above the heart. His head's just hanging off the edge, but not hard, right? People will say, well, how long are you going to do that? If you need a time, about 10 to 15 seconds. This Gets that ankle pump going in there. See how much that's moving in there? Then I'd get into my massage, okay? So just weave these in a little bit more deliberately. Stop and take time to pump along through here. When you're in the torso, you're thinking about changing the shape of the rib cage just a little bit. And it's twirling the diaphragm just a little bit, loosening it up. I certainly make a mess out of you.
I am used to it.
But I always want to see the other end move. And then what if you were on his side?
Which side?
Face them.
Okay. The best me being a demo story I will always have is she had me, and she was drawing using Sharpie, the muscles, kind of like compartments and lines. But it's supposed to be a dry erase marker with a Sharpie.
They were there for a
Had some cool designs for Exactly.
I don't concentrate on that shaking so much, but I can. What I really like the sidelying for is so that I'm not thinking move the ribs so he can feel better. I'm not thinking maybe there is a muscle that's too short in there. I'm thinking I want this to go. That's what I'm thinking. Now, if I'm doing this, like right there, and I find a spot, because this is assessment, I find a spot that doesn't move very well, then I might add an intervention. So I'm going to use inhibitory pressure and movement. So I'm just going to come down on that. My depth is going to increase enough to change the shape of the spot. And then will you cough? That's the movement.
You want to keep going?
Yeah. There you go. Then I'm going to go back, pump through here. Now I'm not thinking fluid pump, I'm thinking, does that rib move better? It's the same method, but my focus, my intention is a little different. Now I'm thinking about moving, encouraging the pump. Would you have known that if I hadn't told you? So this is where sometimes it can get a little overwhelming because these things can do more than one thing. So how do you know if what you're doing and if you're doing it right, and
But it's never wrong to facilitate doing something that's beneficial for the body, right? So
mimic normal.
incorporating some connective tissue lymphatic concepts into your, being mindful of it. It should be part of your routine, even if you don't know it yet.
And then in the connective tissue philosophy, remember that big long line? Kind of this big long line that runs through there all the way down. We want that to I mean, it is an anchoring line. It's not gonna lift. But it shouldn't be stuck, and there should be a little bit of excursion back and forth in that too. This is the importance of the scalp. So, now if people hate any of this, then don't do it. No. So, but if I can get a hold of the hair and lift, isn't that similar as the cup? It's lifting that big connective tissue area. And then if I have him make a hula hoop with his hips, okay, I'm holding this still, and he's moving it into ease and bind down there, and you can feel that up here.
You absolutely can.
All right,
That's
so
very surprising.
come here. You gotta hold this at bind, or you won't feel it. Okay, so just get a hold of a hunk, bring it out to bind. Okay, hold it tight,
Yeah, a little bit more pull.
out.
You get a big lump. There you go.
All right, now you pay attention.
Are you ready?
Oh, that's so weird. Like, you wouldn't think that it's a lot, but it's a lot.
Other
That's
concepts
crazy.
use that. Has anybody heard what they call nerve flossing, where you sit there with your legs straight and you move your neck back and forth?
That's all.
You
who
can
else
really
wants to
feel it, but no, using head, changing where your head is, creates tension up and down the entire
You can do
spine
it on
in
yourself.
various ways.
You know, while you're sitting there, so you tell her what to do. Just grab a hold of the top of your head, your hair,
Then good tug.
pull up
There you go.
to bind, and just a little
Then
through it.
Nope, hold
Then
the tension.
Cut,
There you go.
cut. You'll feel it, yay.
I wasn't expecting that. Like, it's weird.
Who would have thought this is what you would learn in class?
Wait, can you see how doing a good, now I don't tend to grab the hair like she does in practice, but I do make sure that scalp moves. But how I then can draw these lines of, it's important to work here because it will translate and create a myofascial effect down into their sacrum. You know?
Now, any place on here that you see a big glob of white, this is another way of looking at it. Oh, that's gross. Got hair on it. Ew. Where it holds on, along the side of the rib, across through here, and anchors at the abdominal aponeurosis. Comes down here, anchors onto the iliac crest and the ischial tuberosity, or the greater trochanter. Hitches onto the knee. Hitches onto the ankle and into the bottom of the foot. Here's the back part of that. High on the scalp. Right across the scapula. Down into the lumbar area. Crosses more on the midline, anchors onto the bones there, and then on your side. Any place you see that anchored down on a bone, if you hold that still and have them move around it, you're gonna get an awful lot done. Because this is where the connective tissue sheathings all come together to grab before they move on to something else. So,
A couple really good examples of areas that you would feel this in your regular practice would be base of the skull.
yep,
That's why sometimes getting you guys comfortable with using a forearm there, it's good for that to be a challenge. You're starting off more cautious, but it's not just about the muscles. It's about how all those muscles smear together at these deep fascial anchor sites. Same thing with the lateral raphe. What gets shown and taught as a quadratus lumborum release. But when you create a wedge deep into the whole side of the body, that is a big, deep fascia seam where many things come together, including psoas, quadratus
the
lumborum.
diaphragm
the obliques.
indirectly.
What's our time on there, Sarah?
26.
Okay, we're good.
Right here.
At
That's-
38. is
All right,
what
that's
it
the
is.
side. That's all the connective tissue structures come forward from the front. Everything comes back here from the back. They seam right there, right here on the side. If I put pressure on that, it's gonna put a pull into every structure that meets right there. And then if I ask him to do something,
It can be a movement, it can be breathing.
it can be breathing, which is a biggie in through here. I hold it still, take it to bind, hold it still, then have them move around it.
Or hula hoops. Move that bottom leg.
Yes, Celine.
What's the benefit for having him cough like you did the first time?
Coughing is a way that I can control a more explosive movement. That's all it is.
Or think of it like a contract relax
Yeah,
for the ribs. For the intercostals and stuff around the ribs. It's a nice way to make them to contract. So it works good for myofascial friction and stuff around the ribs and everything. So
I can hold him down here and I know there's a big connector right back here at the base of from the middle of your scapula way up into your head to your eyebrows, and so now, Joanne's had some craniosacral training, Gail has had some, I've had a lot of it, but I know that that's a big anchor spot. I can call it a frontal lift if I want to. But I also know that this is a big connector spot, and I know at the back of the head where they would do an occipital move. I'm gonna hold this one down. Move your head in a big circle. Scrunch your eyebrows together. Okay, now somebody wants to come up and feel this. Where's Abby?
Oh, she's already left.
Oh, she had to leave. Okay, I don't care who comes up.
Get it, Celine.
and this will reinforce some of the method to the madness when you guys get shown this. Sometimes this just gets shown. Nice angle for you guys to, using good body mechanics, put pressure into the low back muscles, right?
Okay.
But now you can see this interfaces with the deeper
Now
aspects of
just
the
lean down,
myofascial
till the bottom's
system.
out.
It could be involved with
That's
breathing
good.
and lymphatic
Okay.
draining.
Okay,
So-
you pay attention here, because this is the still hand, all right? Scrunch your eyebrows together, Luke.
Oh, there you go. I feel the fire kind of like over here. like-
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Now, more profound, lifting of the leg.
Mhm.
You know that one.
Okay.
It's the
Because you
breathing.
can, hold it down at fine. Wiggle your ears, Luke.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Because it's all connected.
When she says a wetsuit, it literally is a wetsuit. So can you pull on one part of your shirt without changing the shape of the whole shirt? No, when you pull on one part of the clothing, all of the clothing gets taken along for the ride.
but you can be really efficient if you target these areas where the fascia,
It feels good, but.
the fascia comes together, the deep fascia and the superficial fascia comes
the
together and anchors into the periosteum, anchors into the bone. You hold down there,
Integrate some of that.
or you hold down in a seam, and then have them move. Start distal, play around with it.
Absolutely.
Or start here at the top and work in. Because you won't get muscle recruitment when you do that. You know, when he lifts his leg, you're gonna get some muscle recruitment. But if he just, you gotta be a binder, you won't feel it. That's why I keep correcting her to get down to where it's binding, stops. All right, wiggle your ears.
It's like just really small, but yeah.
Yeah, and there's not muscle. You know it's gotta be something else that's moving in there. So which party trick did you like the best?
Yeah, no problem.
We're good.
Did you like the wiggle the ear one? Did you like the pulling the hair one?
I feel like the wiggling the ear was nicer for him. I feel
So
like the-
that's also breaking that down a touch. That can be a case where your assessment